The real difference between sex and true intimacy? Communication. And no, I'm not talking about those deep conversations you have before or after. I'm talking about in the moment. When everything's happening, when you're fully present body, heart, and soul. For years, many of us were raised with the idea that talking during sex was inappropriate, that decent women don't do that if we say what we truly feel will come off as too intense, too much. But here's what no one tells you. The right words, said at the right moment, can transform not just that night, but the entire dynamic of your relationship. After years of experience, and after listening to hundreds of women in couples therapy, I've discovered something that might surprise you. There's a massive difference between women who manage to keep the spark alive for years and those who slowly feel it fade. And that difference isn't about age. It's not about the body. It's not about how long you've been together. It's about how you communicate during intimacy. If you've lived long enough, you know exactly what I mean. Those relationships that begin with fireworks and end in routine. Those nights that feel predictable, scripted, mechanical, where you know exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to end. Yes, it's normal for things to evolve over time, but intimacy doesn't have to become dull. It doesn't have to lose its soul. But before we go any further, I want to be crystal clear. What I'm sharing with you isn't about manipulation. It's not about cheap tricks. These are tools for real, intimate communication, and they work because they're rooted in something honest, emotional connection. And of course, everything I'm about to say assumes something essential. Consent, respect, openness. Nothing here should ever make you feel pressured or uncomfortable. Now, let me share something that surprised even me when I first began exploring this deeply. The biggest barriers to intimacy in long-term relationships aren't about technique. They're about fear. Fear of expressing what you really feel. Fear of seeming too much. Fear of being judged. Fear of being compared. And this fear runs especially deep in women of our generation. We were raised with so many unspoken rules, so many taboos around our sexuality. Be polite, be composed, be proper. Don't be loud, don't be needy, don't be that woman. But here's the truth, one that years of experience have shown me again and again. Your partner wants to hear you. He wants to know that what he's doing moves you, affects you, excites you. Men especially respond powerfully to auditory and visual feedback. They need to feel that they're giving you real pleasure, that they're reaching you. But this isn't just about giving him validation. It's about unlocking your experience too. Because when you finally give yourself permission to express what you're feeling, when you stop censoring yourself, when you let your voice become part of the moment, something incredible happens. Your pleasure intensifies. Why? Because when you vocalize what you're experiencing, your brain processes it more deeply. You feel it not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. It's as if you're living the experience twice, once in your body and once through your voice. This dual stimulation creates a feedback loop that amplifies everything. And perhaps even more importantly, it's liberating. Because many of us have spent our lives holding back, playing it safe, being nice, being proper, measuring every word and reaction. But in intimacy, real intimacy, that restraint becomes a cage. When you finally break free of it, when you claim your space, your voice, your desire, that's when intimacy becomes what it was always meant to be. Alive, expansive, transformative. The bedroom might be the only place where you can be truly free, completely authentic, completely unfiltered. And that kind of freedom, it doesn't just feel incredible in the moment, it leaves lasting echoes in how you see yourself, in your self-esteem, in the way you relate to your own body, your own desire, your own sense of worth. Because when you allow yourself to express, when you celebrate your pleasure without guilt, without apology, without shame, you're sending a message, loud and clear. to the deepest parts of yourself. I deserve this. My joy matters. My sexuality is beautiful. But before we get to the specific words and phrases that can change everything, we need to talk about preparation. Because, yes, this kind of transformation requires a bit of groundwork. You can't simply show up one night and start speaking in a completely new way without having laid the foundation. Not if you want it to feel natural, accepted, and safe. The first step, create an atmosphere of openness outside the bedroom. And no, this doesn't mean sitting down for some awkward clinical talk. Start small, start gently. You might bring it up over coffee, on a walk, while curled up on the couch, somewhere you both feel relaxed and connected. Ask him, what do you like to hear in those moments? Do you enjoy verbal connection when we're intimate? Is there something you've always wanted me to say or wished I'd express more openly? Because here's something we often forget, especially in long-term relationships. We assume we know. We think we've got our partner all figured out. But the truth is, people change. Desire evolves. What worked 5 years ago might not feel the same today. So this initial conversation does more than give you useful insight. It opens the door for him to be more expressive. 2, it tells him, this is a space where we can grow, where curiosity is welcome, where intimacy doesn't have to be a script, but a living, breathing dialogue. And here's something many women don't realize or don't fully consider. This conversation is also your chance to set your own boundaries and express your preferences. Talk about the kind of communication that turns you on and, just as importantly, what doesn't. What words excite you? What phrases make you feel uncomfortable or disconnected? It should feel like an exchange, not an interview. You're not just collecting information. You're co-creating a space of trust and honesty. The second step, and this one is surprisingly effective, is to use text messages as a testing ground. Yes, texting, but in a way that's completely adapted to your age, your relationship, and your comfort zone. I'm not talking about sending explicit photos or anything that feels forced or compromising. I'm talking about words, subtle, suggestive, emotionally rich messages that build anticipation. For example, during the day, you might send something like, tonight I want you to do that thing I love, or I keep thinking about how it feels when you touch me. These kinds of messages act like a thermometer. His reaction will tell you a lot about how open he is to this deeper, more expressive kind of intimacy. But here's something many women don't realize. Intimate messages aren't just for him, they're also for you. They give you practice. They help you find your voice to discover what feels natural on your tongue and what doesn't. It's like a dress rehearsal before the main event. They let you explore different levels of intensity, gradually moving from subtle to bold, depending on how you respond. It's a safe way to step into this new space without the immediate pressure of the bedroom. But here's the real power behind this kind of texting. It helps quiet that internal voice that tells you, you shouldn't say that. That's not ladylike. That's too much. When you write these things, when you see them laid out in your own words, and when you receive a warm, enthusiastic response, your brain begins to rewire itself. It starts to understand, it's safe to express myself. It's okay to enjoy this part of me. I can be open and still be respected. Now, let's talk about the 3 phrases that can completely transform your intimate experience. But before I give them to you, I want you to understand why they work. Because no phrase, no matter how sexy or clever, is magical on its own. What makes these words powerful is that they speak directly to 3 fundamental psychological needs we all share in intimacy. Validation, the need to feel we're doing it right, that our presence and effort are giving real pleasure. Connection, the desire to feel truly united with our partner, emotionally as well as physically. Admiration, the longing to feel wanted, special, and uniquely desired. When you speak to these needs, not from a script, but from genuine emotion, that's when words become unforgettable. The first phrase, and perhaps the most powerful of all, is, You feel delicious. I know it might sound a little unusual at first, especially if you're not used to speaking during intimacy. But let me tell you why this simple phrase is so incredibly effective. First, it's universal. It doesn't matter if your partner is a man or a woman. It doesn't matter what position you're in or what stage of the experience you're sharing. It works every single time. Because when you say you feel delicious, you're not just saying you're enjoying the moment. You're naming the physical sensation of their body against yours. You're speaking to touch, to texture, to temperature, to the exact feeling of skin, pressure, movement, all of it. And that's what makes this phrase so intimate. It's not a cliche. It's not something you say to flatter or impress. It's a real-time response to what you're feeling, and they know it. But here's what truly makes this phrase extraordinary. It immediately boosts your partner's confidence. It tells them, you're not just here, you're felt, you're wanted, you're tasted and savored and fully received. And that kind of feedback, it doesn't just enhance the moment, it deepens the connection. You're not just telling him you like what he's doing. You're telling him his body, his presence brings you pleasure. It's personal. It's intimate. It's pure, unmistakable validation. And there's something else that makes this kind of phrase so powerful. It speaks in sensory language. It's not intellectual. It's not abstract emotion. It's visceral, physical, immediate. When you say, you feel delicious, his mind doesn't wander into analysis or interpretation. It drops directly into the body, into the now. It conjures up touch, taste, heat, everything that makes pleasure real and tangible. It anchors him in the moment, right there with you. And here's something incredibly important. When you use this phrase, your partner will almost always respond by increasing the rhythm. Why? Because many men interpret expression of pleasure as a green light, a sign to go harder, faster, deeper. It's instinctive. They want to give more of what's working. It's their way of saying, yes, I hear you. Let me take you even further. You can guide this even more with your body language. Keep your hands on him, subtly guiding the movement or rhythm you want. Move your body in sync with a pace that builds your arousal. Nonverbal communication can be just as powerful, sometimes even more powerful than words. But timing is crucial. This phrase, you feel so good or you feel delicious, should be used only when you're truly close to orgasm. If you say it too early, it might rush his process and bring things to a peak before you've fully reached yours. Anyone with real experience knows this. Timing is everything in intimacy. It's not like in the movies where climax happens simultaneously, perfectly, every time. In real life, we need communication, we need guidance, and most of all, patience. There's another phrase short, simple, and incredibly potent. Don't stop. When you say this, you're doing more than giving encouragement. You're taking control. You're actively directing your own pleasure. You're saying, this is what I want. This is what I need. Stay here. Keep going. And that sense of agency is powerful. Many women have been conditioned to be passive in sex, to receive whatever is given, to avoid asking directly for what they want. But using this phrase is a quiet act of revolution. It's a way of reclaiming your pleasure. It's a declaration that says, my desire matters. My rhythm matters. I know what feels good, and I have the right to ask for it. And finally, the third phrase, my personal favorite, you drive me wild. At first glance, it might sound casual, but that's exactly why it works so well. It sounds real, unfiltered, like something that slips out when you're no longer trying to control yourself. This phrase is powerful because it personalizes the experience completely. You're not just saying, this feels good. You're saying, you are the one making me feel this way. It's you who's doing this to me. That difference between a general feeling and a deeply personal reaction is everything. When a woman says, you drive me wild, she's speaking directly to a man's ego in the most beautiful way. She's telling him that he's unique, that he holds something that awakens her, that he is the reason she is letting go, losing control, becoming something raw and real in his hands. It speaks to him on multiple levels. Emotionally, it makes him feel desired, specifically by you. Psychologically, it reinforces his confidence, his presence, his role as a powerful lover. Physically, it energizes him, makes him want to go deeper, last longer, connect more intensely. But there's something even more profound. When you say this, you're also affirming something about yourself. You're saying, I have a wild side. I have a part of me that can be consumed by desire, and I trust you enough to show it. And that is incredibly liberating. Many women, especially those of us raised with more conservative ideas about female sexuality, carry within us parts of ourselves that have been hidden, silenced, or quietly repressed. But this phrase is more than just words. It's a kind of permission slip, a way of inviting those buried parts of us, the passionate, untamed, deeply sensual parts, to come forward and be fully expressed. You can use it at different moments, depending on how you feel. During foreplay, as the tension begins to build, in the middle of the act, when you're caught in that delicious sense of losing control, even afterwards, whisper softly as a way of affirming just how powerful and unforgettable the experience truly was. You can also adapt the phrase to suit your own personality and the dynamic of your relationship. Some women feel more aligned with gentler expressions, like "you drive me crazy" or "you make me lose myself." Others feel most authentic using something bolder, more intense language that mirrors the depth of their desire. What matters most is that it feels true to you, that it comes from a place of genuine feeling, not performance. And here's what I find most beautiful about this phrase. It recognizes that great sex isn't something one person does to the other. It's not a performance or a one-sided act. It's something you create together, a shared rhythm, a mutual surrender. One person's response feeds the other's passion in a continuous, rising cycle of pleasure and connection. But what truly makes these phrases transformative isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. Your tone of voice, your facial expression, your body language, all of it must align with the words. If you say you feel delicious in a flat voice with no emotion, it simply won't land the same way as when you say it with real feeling, with warmth in your eyes, pleasure in your voice, and admiration in your touch. And here's something I've learned after years of working with couples. Authenticity cannot be faked. Your partner will feel whether or not you're truly experiencing what you're saying. That's why it's so important to use these phrases only when you genuinely mean them, when they arise from a real, embodied experience. Emotional authenticity carries a kind of energy that no technique can replicate. When you truly feel what you're saying, when your words reflect the truth of your body and your heart, they hold a power that goes far beyond language. Your partner doesn't just hear them, they feel them. And that emotional truth, that is what builds real intimacy. It's the difference between a physical encounter and an experience that leaves both of you feeling seen, cherished, and deeply connected. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but I feel embarrassed talking like that. I'm not sure how my partner will react. What if he thinks I'm too much? And those concerns are completely valid. Many of us were raised to believe that good women don't speak openly about sex, that expressing pleasure is somehow shameful. But here's what I've learned. True intimacy requires vulnerability. And yes, vulnerability is scary, especially when it involves something as personal, as tender, as sexual expression. Yet that shared vulnerability is exactly what allows for the kind of connection we're all longing for. And if your partner judges you for expressing pleasure, for asking for what you want, for being emotionally honest in bed, then you are not the problem. The problem is that you may not have the kind of partner who is ready for deep emotional intimacy. Because a mature partner, someone who truly loves and desires you, will receive your expressiveness as the gift that it is. He'll understand that when you open yourself that way, when you share your inner world so directly, you are offering him something profoundly intimate and rare. And if you're in a long-term relationship where verbal expressiveness hasn't been a part of your dynamic, yes, your partner might be surprised at first. That's perfectly normal. But if the relationship is healthy, if there's love, respect, and trust, that surprise will quickly turn into excitement and then into gratitude. That said, I want to be very clear. You don't need to transform overnight. If you've never been very expressive during intimacy, don't pressure yourself to become wildly verbal in one evening. It's a process, an evolution. Start slowly. Let your voice come through in softer ways. More audible sighs, more expressive moans, simpler words, even a breathless yes, spoken at the right moment, can be more powerful than a carefully scripted line that doesn't feel real. What matters is honesty. Your partner will connect far more with emotional truth than with any perfect but empty technique. And speaking of truth, there's something I need to say, something you may not want to hear, but that is absolutely essential. Verbal communication during sex will not save a relationship that is already broken. If there's a lack of respect, if there has been betrayal, if deep emotional wounds remain unspoken, then no phrase, no matter how beautiful, can fix that. These tools might bring moments of connection, but they cannot heal a relationship with no foundation. What they can do, however, is deepen the intimacy in the relationship that is already grounded in love, honesty, and mutual respect. They can breathe new life into a connection that may have fallen into routine. They can help you rediscover the passion that's still there, waiting just beneath the surface. And finally, remember this. Every couple is different. What awakens deep desire in one person may not have the same effect on another. The key is to explore, to stay curious, and to communicate openly, not just about what you're doing, but about how you're both feeling. Because in the end, great intimacy isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, real, and willing to be seen. That's why the initial conversation I mentioned earlier is so essential. Before anything else, you need to get to know your partner to understand how they respond, what they enjoy, and what their boundaries are. Some people are highly visual, they respond intensely to verbal expression. Others are more tactile, attuned to the language of touch. Some are naturally expressive. Others are more reserved. There's no one-size-fits-all formula, and that's okay. But there is something universal. The need for connection, the need to feel desired, the need to know that we're not only receiving pleasure, but also giving it. These are human needs. They exist regardless of age, gender, or experience. And this brings me to something very important, something I want you to truly understand. Using your voice during intimacy isn't just for your partner's benefit. It's for you too. When you express what you feel, when you verbalize your pleasure, you allow yourself to experience intimacy more fully. There's something deeply liberating about being able to say exactly what's moving through you, about letting go of what's appropriate or proper, and simply being authentic in one of the most vulnerable, intimate moments of your life. And that authenticity has a profound impact on your sexual experience. When you're no longer worried about how you look or how you sound, when you stop censoring your natural responses, you open yourself to true surrender. And in that surrender, you may discover levels of pleasure you never knew were possible. But there's something even deeper at work here. When you use your voice in sex, you're not just enhancing the moment, you're reclaiming your sexual agency. You're affirming that your pleasure matters, that your voice has power, and that you are not a passive participant. You are an active co-creator of this experience. For many women, especially those raised with restrictive, often unspoken rules about female sexuality, this can be radically healing. It's a way of rewriting old stories, a way of saying, I choose to be fully present in my desire. I choose to be heard. Now, I want to talk about something men and women face, particularly as we get older. Comparison, especially if your partner has had previous relationships. It's natural to wonder, how do I measure up? What did they have that I don't? Was I as good, as beautiful, as exciting? I want you to hear this clearly. Comparison is the enemy of intimacy. When you're in your head comparing yourself to someone else, you're no longer present in your body. When you're worrying about being enough, you lose touch with who you truly are. But real intimacy isn't about being better than someone else. It's about being fully yourself with someone who sees you, desires you, and loves you as you are. It's about creating something unique that only exists between the two of you, something that cannot be duplicated with anyone else, because you are unique, and together you are something entirely your own. And this is especially true for mature women. You do not need to compete with younger women. You do not need to pretend to be something you're not. What you have is something far more powerful: experience, self-awareness, confidence in your own body, your own needs, your own worth. A woman in her 40 seconds, 50 seconds, or 60 seconds, a woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to ask for it, is infinitely more magnetic than a younger woman who is still learning how to own her power. Your emotional maturity, your ability to communicate openly, your freedom from the insecurities of youth, these are not liabilities. They are strengths. Use them. Use your self-knowledge to articulate what you need. Use your life experience to create not just physical intimacy, but emotional closeness. Use your confidence to show up fully, authentically, and unapologetically. And here's something else I want you to remember. The phrases we've been discussing: don't stop, you drive me wild, you feel so good, these are only the beginning. They're the doorway into a deeper, richer kind of sexual communication, because once you feel comfortable expressing yourself in the moment, once using your voice becomes natural, you'll find yourself opening up to even more. You may start talking about your fantasies, your desires, the things you've always wanted to try but never dared to say out loud. And that's when intimacy deepens into something truly unforgettable. You can ask for what you need clearly and specifically. You can share your boundaries. You can express your preferences without apology. This kind of open, honest communication is what sets mature intimacy apart from the intimacy of youth. When you're young, sex is often instinctive, filled with exploration, fueled by curiosity, but sometimes guided by uncertainty. When you're mature, intimacy can become something more intentional, focused, exact. And that is incredibly powerful. It means you no longer have to settle for mediocre experiences. It means you don't have to pretend to enjoy something that doesn't feel right for you. It means you have the power and the wisdom to shape your intimate life into exactly what you want it to be. But with that power comes responsibility. You must be willing to communicate what you want. You can't expect your partner to read your mind. You can't hold frustration over something they've never been told. Because the truth is, clear, direct communication is the foundation of every deeply satisfying sexual connection. And here's something many women overlook. Sexual communication isn't just about what happens during the act. It's also about the conversations before and after. It's about creating a relationship culture where openness, curiosity, and honesty are the norm, not the exception. That means talking about sex when you're not having sex. It means reflecting together after an encounter, sharing what worked, what you loved, what could be even better. It means whispering a fantasy while you're out for a walk. It means laughing together about your curiosities, wandering together, discovering together. These kinds of conversations might feel awkward at first, especially if you've never had them before. But like anything worth learning, they become natural with practice. And the impact they can have on your intimate life is profound. When communication outside the bedroom becomes easy and open, communication inside the bedroom flows with far more ease. When you've already spoken about boundaries and desires in a relaxed, trusting setting, it's much easier to navigate them in moments of passion. And the reverse is also true. As you begin to use your voice more during sex to express pleasure, to give feedback, to ask for what you want, you'll find it becomes easier to talk about sex outside those moments too. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle of openness, trust, and intimacy. But I also want to be very clear about something. None of this is possible without the right partner. A partner who respects you, who values what you say, who cares about your pleasure as deeply as they care about their own. If your partner isn't willing to listen, if they become defensive when you express your needs, if they rather you stay silent than speak your truth, then it may be time to ask yourself, is this really the relationship I want to be in? Because here's the truth, and I want you to hear it clearly. You deserve incredible intimacy. You deserve a partner who celebrates your expressiveness, who is excited when you share what you feel, who is eager to know how to please you and willing to learn. You do not have to settle for less, not because of your age, not because of how long you've been together, not for any reason at all. In fact, I firmly believe this. As mature women, we deserve the best intimacy of our lives. We've spent years discovering what we don't want. We've endured more than our share of mediocre, one-sided, or confusing experiences. Now is the time to claim what we do want. And that goes beyond learning a few central phrases. It means building a relationship culture where communication is constant, not occasional. Where sex isn't a taboo topic, but a shared space for joy, growth, and play. Where boundaries, preferences, fantasies, and vulnerabilities are spoken aloud, not kept in silence. This might feel intimidating at first, especially if you've been with your partner for many years and have never had these conversations before. But I promise you, it's worth it. The intimacy you can create when both people are willing to be honest, vulnerable, and expressive is extraordinary. It's not just about having better sex. It's about building a deeper connection, one based not on guessing or hoping, but on real knowing, real listening, and real love. And I'm not just talking about physical intimacy. I'm talking about that deep emotional connection that happens when two people feel safe enough to be completely vulnerable with one another. When they share not only their bodies, but also their most private desires, their hidden fantasies, their specific needs without fear, without shame. That is the kind of intimacy that builds relationships that last. That's the kind of intimacy that keeps passion alive, even after years together. The kind that deepens with time, rather than fading. And it all begins with something as small and as powerful as learning to use your voice during sex. I also want to speak directly to something that's especially relevant for many of us in this stage of life. Sexual reinvention. So many of us have gone through profound changes. Divorce, the loss of a partner, children leaving home, shifting hormones, new chapters, new identities. And while these changes can be challenging, they also offer something precious, an invitation to rediscover and redefine our sexuality on our terms, in our time, with our wisdom. If you're starting a new relationship after years in the previous one, this is the perfect moment to create a new dynamic one, rooted in authenticity and open communication. You don't have to carry forward old patterns. You don't have to repeat what no longer serves you. You get to design something completely new, something real. And if you're in a long-term relationship, know this. Shifting how you communicate in the bedroom can feel like renewing your vows, but intimately. It can breathe new life into a connection that may have become predictable. It can awaken desire in places that have gone quiet. It can bring laughter, curiosity, and surprise back into your shared space. But there's something even deeper happening here. When you begin to use your voice, when you allow yourself to be expressive, honest, and emotionally present, you're not only transforming your experience, you're also giving your partner permission to do the same. You're modeling a new kind of intimacy, one that invites vulnerability instead of avoiding it. Because many men, especially those from our generation, were also raised with restrictive ideas around emotional expression. They've been taught to be composed, controlled, to hide their feelings, to perform rather than to connect. And yet, deep down, they long for the same things we do, to be seen, to be accepted, to feel free. So when you show up as your full, sensual, emotional self, when you express openly, When you invite connection instead of just expecting performance, you're giving your partner an extraordinary gift. You're saying, you don't have to pretend here. You can be real with me. This space is safe. And that, right there, is where the greatest power of this journey lies. Because when two people choose to drop the mask together, when they let go of shame, fear, and outdated beliefs, they create space for intimacy that doesn't just satisfy the body. It nourishes the soul. It stops being about performance. It becomes about recognition, about presence, about being fully seen, fully heard, and fully accepted exactly as you are. And that's what we all truly seek, no matter our age. So don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect conditions. Don't wait until you've read every book or healed every insecurity. Don't wait for your partner to magically just know. And above all, don't wait for permission. Start now. Start with one sincere sentence. Start with one real look. Start with one soft, honest yes that rises from deep within. Because your sexuality, your ability to connect, your right to express, to feel, to ask, to guide, it's already within you. Don't wait for perfection. Just begin. You deserve to live the intimacy you truly long for.